Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. In today's video, I'll be using Scrapbook.com's Cloud Whip modeling paste. Earlier this year, Scrapbook.com released their Cloud Whip modeling paste. Most people know I am a huge pattern paper fan, but sometimes it's fun to try different techniques on cards or projects. Cloud Whip is a base for mixed media projects. It's currently available in two different sizes, the 12-ounce jar, and that's what I'm showing here, and there's also a 2-ounce jar. The 2-ounce jar is the perfect size if you want to try it out. And I have provided links in the description box for both sizes of the Cloud Whip. This is the very first time I've ever tried Cloud Whip. After removing the lid, there is an inside seal cover. There's adhesive on the edge, so you do want to keep that cover. You can replace it to help keep the product from drying out. At first glance, the product doesn't seem to live up to its name. It's dry, hard, very crumbly. This is exactly as it should be. Cloud Whip is designed to add other mediums to it or just water. You can mix them in to get the consistency you want for your project. I'll scoop out some of the Cloud Whip, put it on Scrapbook.com's silicone mat, and I'll start adding water to it. I'm using Ranger's Distress Sprayer, have it filled up with water. I'll spray just a little bit of water. Then I'll mix it up using a craft palette knife. I'll keep adding water, mix up the Cloud Whip until I have the consistency I want. Once you've added enough liquid, the consistency does end up to be nice and fluffy. Kind of looks like a frosting. But remember, this is not edible. I do want to mention the Cloud Whip, when it's wet, it does have a slight odor. So if you are sensitive to odors or fragrances, you may want to use it in a well-ventilated area. I'm super sensitive to fragrances, and I didn't have any problem using this, but I did want to mention it. The product is non-toxic and non-allergenic. Now that I have my Cloud Whip all ready to use, I'm putting it on some pink cardstock, and this is from Scrapbook.com's new Pinks Smooth Cardstock paper pad. I love this paper pad. I may have bought just a couple of them since it's all pink. I'm using Scrapbook.com's Snowflake stencil. I'll place it on top of the pink cardstock. Now I'll scoop up some of the Cloud Whip, and using Scrapbook.com's all-purpose craft scraper, I'll spread it all over the stencil and paper, making sure to get a nice, smooth, even coverage. Then I'll peel off the stencil and look at this fun design. Now I'll set that aside to dry. One thing that's so fun about the Cloud Whip, you can mix in lots of different mediums. I used just water for the first project. Now I'm using some of Scrapbook.com's Pops of Color, and this will add a beautiful color to the Cloud Whip. I decided to go with a lovely pink. This is their Pearl Bubblegum color. I'll keep adding more pops of color to get a darker pink shade and also to get the right consistency. Once I'm happy with it, I'll use the same Snowflake stencil, scoop the Cloud Whip onto the stencil, and spread it around evenly using the all-purpose craft scraper. I love the look of the light pink color on craft cardstock. You can see I do have some water spots on there. Apparently I didn't let my stencil dry completely before using it. But that's fine, it'll dry. For the third project, I'm using a re-inker. This is Catherine Pooler's On the Lake color. It's this beautiful blue, and it's one of her brand new colors. I haven't even used the ink pad yet, but now I've used some of the re-inker. I did also add some water to the Cloud Whip along with the re-inker. You really just need to play around until you're happy with the consistency. I'm using the same Snowflake stencil, this time on some white cardstock. For my fourth project, I decided to use a different stencil. This is Scrapbook.com's Little Bows. I have a piece of white cardstock, and I won't be stenciling the entire paper. I'm adding a piece of Scrapbook.com's mint tape so I can mask off just the top area of the background. I'm also using some mint tape to hold the stencil in place, although it really doesn't move since I'm using a silicone mat. I decided to go with more pops of color. I really like the combination of the two. This time I'm using the holly green color. And this time I ended up getting way too much water. So I am adding a little more of the cloud whip. There was a small clump at the very top, so I was able to pick it up with my fingers, mix up the cloud whip again, and now I have the perfect consistency. Once I've added it on the background, I'll remove the piece of mint tape. You can see I have that perfect diagonal line going across the background. I think the little bows look so pretty in the mint green color. The green almost matches the mint tape, just slightly darker. I did set aside all of the projects overnight to dry, although I think they're good after a couple hours. It just depends on temperature and humidity. Now it's time to turn those beautiful backgrounds into some cards. For my first card, I'm using the pink snowflake background with the craft cardstock. I'll be making a Christmas card. I use Scrapbook.com's Merry Christmas A2 cover plate, cut it out of some pink cardstock. And I did show that it's from the Sherbet paper pad, but I believe this pink is actually from their vacation paper pad. When I was making all these cards, I had a large stack of Scrapbook.com's smooth cardstock paper pads next to me. They have so many now with a large variety of colors, I was starting to lose track of which paper I was using. I wanted to add some dimension without using foam, so I did cut out 3 more layers of the Merry Christmas cover plate. I used white cardstock for those 3 layers. Then I adhered them all together using Barely Art glue. Now I'll flip over this piece, putting some double-sided adhesive tape just on the back side of the frame. I'll remove the release paper, and I'll put glue behind the Merry Christmas sentiment. On my craft table, you can see a tiny pink dot, and that's the dot for the eye. And I did layer that tiny dot with the white cardstock as well. Instead of flipping over the cover plate onto the snowflake background, I'm doing it the other way around. I cut that background just a tiny bit smaller than an A2 size card. That way I knew it would fit. Now I'll add a small drop of Barely Art glue and dot the eye. I'm using a pair of reverse tweezers to pick up that tiny piece. Next, I'll put glue on the back and add my card front onto a card base. All of my cards in this video are American Standard A2 size, 5.5 inches by 4.25 inches. And for a final finishing touch, I'm adding some glitter pops of color. This is the Unicorn Tears color. I'll put a few dots in the lower right-hand corner, a few in the upper left-hand corner, and 2 in the lower left-hand corner. It'll add just a little bit of sparkle. So there is my finished card, and this is card number 1. For card number 2, I'll be using the blue snowflake background. I'm layering it on some silver glitter paper, and this is from Scrapbook.com's Mix Metals Glitter Paper Pack. I'll put adhesive on the back of the snowflake panel, and I did cut this panel to 4 inches by 5.25 inches. I'm using Scrapbook.com's Deluxe Adhesive Roller. Now you can see that beautiful silver sparkle around the snowflake background. I'll flip over this piece, put adhesive on the back, and add my card front onto a card base. I've already gone ahead and cut out all of the die cuts. I put all of the die cut pieces in one of Scrapbook.com's stack and sort trays. These are perfect for keeping all your die cut pieces organized. This will be another Christmas card. I'm adding 1 small snowflake, and this is from Scrapbook.com's Snowflake die set, and I cut it out of some beautiful holographic paper. The sentiment is Merry Christmas. I have the word and also the outline. The blue cardstock I used for the sentiment is from Scrapbook.com's Cools Smooth Cardstock Pack. The color matched perfectly with the blue snowflakes. I'll layer the sentiment on the outline. I love having outline dies for sentiments. It really helps them stand out against busy backgrounds. I'll add just a small drop of glue so I can dot the eye. Then I'll add the sentiment onto a vellum tag. And the tag is from Scrapbook.com's nested tag die set. Next I'll add the snowflake in the upper left-hand corner of the tag. Then I'll flip over the tag and I will be popping this up with some foam dimension. I'm using the small circle foam dimension from Scrapbook.com. The circle fits perfectly behind the very center of this snowflake die cut. I'll make sure to get good coverage. With the small size of the circle foam, it's easy to put behind the sentiment. I'll remove the release paper, then add the tag onto my card, putting it at a slight angle. I noticed there was one area of the sentiment that wasn't attached to the vellum tag, so I will add a small drop of glue. I like having the metal tip easy to get in those small areas. So there is my finished card, and this is card number 2. Decided it didn't need any embellishments. It already has lots of sparkle. And I don't think I mentioned earlier, the white cardstock for the background actually has a pearlescent finish. So it's super shimmery. Now moving on to card number 3, and this is my favorite card. I'm using the Fox die set, nested A2 arches, and the Pinks smooth cardstock pack. I've gone ahead and trimmed down the pink paper with the white snowflakes to 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches, and I'm layering it on some white pearlescent cardstock. So it'll have just that little bit of shimmer around the border. Next, I'll adhere the nested arch die cut, and I use the same white pearlescent cardstock. I'll put glue on the back and adhere it onto the snowflake background, and I am placing an acrylic block on top for some added weight while that glue dries. Now I'll start assembling the sweet little fox. If you watch the latest SBC Fest, I have a class featuring this adorable fox, and I couldn't resist making another one. I use several different shades of pink cardstock, all from the Pinks Smooth Cardstock pack. I think the fox is adorable in traditional fox colors, but I can never resist making a pink critter. I cut out the background of the fox, and the die set also includes an outline, although I prefer not to use that piece. I used a lighter pink cardstock color for the tip of the tail, the chest, and also the cheeks of the fox. I used some black cardstock for the nose and the eyes, and a slightly darker pink cardstock color for the inside of the ears. I find the easiest way to assemble the fox is to start with the background, then add the piece for the tail, next the chest, and then the top portion of the fox's head. You'll want to add the 2 cheek pieces or side of the fox's face before adding the nose and the eyes. There are also some pieces for the legs. You'll see the 2 front legs and just part of one of the back legs since the fox is sitting. I used a brown cardstock color for the legs. I believe the brown color was from Scrapbook.com's neutral smooth cardstock pack. Since this is a Christmas card, I decided to have the fox wear a Santa hat. And the Santa hat dies are from Scrapbook.com's Bear die set. They have several different critter die sets available, and I think the hat would fit on all of them. I used the same pink cardstock as the background of the card for the main portion of the hat, and some white pearlescent cardstock for the fluff of the hat. So there is my little fox all assembled. Isn't she adorable? Now I'll flip her over, put foam dimension on the back, using the same small circle foam dimension from Scrapbook.com. Make sure to get good coverage. Then I'll remove the release paper and add my fox inside the nested arch die cut. By having the white arch behind the fox, she really stands out against the busy background. If you don't want to have the solid piece behind your image, you can use the outline die that's included on the die set. I'll be adding the sentiment Let It Snow, and this is from Scrapbook.com's Wordfetti Fa La La stamp set. I'm using the Rose Quartz MISTI, This is an exclusive MISTI color only available at scrapbook.com, and it's a beautiful pink color. The ink color I use for the sentiment is Honeybee Stamp's Intense Black ink. And I did ink up this stamp a few times to get a nice solid impression. I'll trim out the sentiment, use my scissors to cut the left side at a slight angle just for some extra interest. Then I'll add a small scrap piece of cardstock on the left side of the sentiment where it goes off of the white arch. Then I'll adhere it in place using some glue, putting it at the lower portion of the arch on the left side. For a final finishing touch, I'm adding a little bit of sparkle to the fox's Santa hat using scrapbook.com's Glitter Snowflake Pops of Color. So there is my finished card, and this is card number 3. You can never go wrong with a pink Christmas card. For card number 4, I'm using the Sunny Lane Floral Die Set, Hello, Hi Friend Word Dies, and also the Sherbet pattern paper. I selected this lovely blue and white polka dot pattern paper, cut the top portion at an angle to follow the same diagonal design as the stenciled background. Next, I'll add a narrow strip of blue cardstock, and this is from scrapbook.com's Sunshine Smooth Cardstock Pack. I'll adhere it between the stenciled portion and the pattern paper. I did cut it longer than the card panel. I'll simply flip it over, use my scissors, and trim off the extra. Now I'll put adhesive on the back of this piece and layer it on some mint green cardstock. And the green cardstock is from the same Sunshine paper pad. I'll put adhesive on the back and add my card front onto a card base. This time I decided not to make a Christmas card. Using the Sunny Lane Florals die set, I cut out a pretty blue flower. For the scallop portion of the flower, the blue cardstock is the same I used for the diagonal strip. And I have some yellow cardstock for the very center. I'll adhere all of those together using some glue. Then I'll flip over the flower, put foam dimension on the back just behind the very center of the flower. That way I can curl up the petals for a little more dimension. I'll adhere the flower on the left side of the card. For a sentiment, I'm adding the word hello. I love this new die set. It has the word, a drop shadow piece, and also the outline. So lots of extra detail for your sentiment. I use white shimmer cardstock for the word hello, that same blue cardstock for the drop shadow, and some pretty holographic cardstock for the outline. So it's super sparkly. I adhered all of those together using glue. Then I'll flip over the sentiment, put foam dimension on the back, and adhere it in the lower right-hand corner. For a little more sparkle on the flower, I'm using scrapbook.com's clear glitter brush. I'm not a fan of loose glitter, but I love the glitter brush. Doesn't make a big mess. For a final finishing touch, I'm adding some foliage pieces from the same Sunny Lane Florals die set, and I cut them out from holographic paper. I'll tuck all of those foliage pieces underneath the flower, put 2 on the left side and 3 on the right side. Several of the foliage pieces, I will be cutting them down. That way they're not sticking out too far underneath the flower. The holographic paper from scrapbook.com is so pretty and adds a lot of sparkle. There's silver holographic and also some gold holographic included in the paper pad. It's available in both the 6x8 and A2 size. I have the 6x8, that way I have more of the beautiful sparkly paper. So there is my finished card, and this is card number 4. Now here's another look at the 4 cards I made using scrapbook.com's Cloud Whip and also several stencil, stamp, and die sets. If you are interested in any of the products I used in this video, I do have links provided in the description box below. Scrapbook.com is currently having a fun Cloud Whip parade. There's lots of inspiration using their Cloud Whip, and I will add a link in the description box so you can check out the rest of the projects. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.